My name is Sarah Shalash, and I work for the American University in Cairo, or AUC, as we call it. But out of our New York office, we have a very small office with a team here, and I do study abroad recruitment. So I'm kind of the first point of contact for any students in the US who are interested in spending a semester or an academic year abroad in Egypt.
So I'm Hannah Knudsen. I am a junior here at Concordia right now, and I work in the study abroad office right now as a peer advisor. And I also studied abroad at AUC in the fall. So I have some firsthand experience, especially with this program.
Awesome. And that was fall 2021. So that was our first semester fully back in person after about a year and a half of being kind of hybrid. And so kind of navigating the COVID world in Egypt. Our campus in Cairo has a vaccine mandate and masking and social distancing guidelines.
My second level religions class there as a intro to Islam class. I took a language class of sorts as, an intro to Arabic, elementary Arabic level class. And then also as a music minor, I was part of the jazz ensemble there as well.
I think AUC is a really good option for students coming from liberal arts colleges because you can kind of customize your study abroad experience. So you have access to all of our courses across the catalog, pending, prerequisites and availability, but because everything is taught in English. So students really can kind of pick and choose. Did you feel like you couldn't come to Egypt without any Arabic, or how was that kind of transition into the country?
Definitely the, summer before, I came into Egypt admittedly with almost no Arabic, but even coming in with almost no Arabic, I still felt that I could get around both on campus very, very easily, around the community around campus. Also, most people know English if they don't speak it first, or that's not their first language, around Cairo in general, even going into downtown. So I never had any problems getting around. No, I didn't have any big troubles of not knowing Arabic before coming to Cairo.
Talk about why you chose AUC, why you came to Egypt.
Basically knew I always wanted to study abroad. I always wanted to do a study abroad semester. I had an older sister who had done a study abroad semester and came back saying only good things, but I knew I wanted to study abroad. And so I kind of went through the, global website for Concordia I wanted to make sure that I could do my psychology courses fairly easily. So I, filtered for schools that already had a fairly established and a psychology program that would transfer fairly well. I just kind of wanted to get the most out of the cultural experience of studying abroad, and I knew I probably would only study abroad once in my undergraduate experience at least. I just kind of was like, well, Egypt sounds like I'll definitely get a little bit more of a cultural experience. It'll be, more out of my comfort zone. So that's kind of why I chose Egypt.
Did you have any kind of misconceptions about Egypt that you realized they were misconceptions once you had spent some time there?
Perhaps a misconception, something I wasn't expecting, was the level of hospitality in Egypt. Egyptian hospitality and kind of pride in being very kind, helping your fellow neighbor, helping out people.
What would you say to a student who's never been out of the country, who's used to a Moorhead campus, going to a huge city like Cairo?
Honestly, that was basically me. My high school graduating class was of 50 students in a very small, I came from a very small town. And then, so at the time, Fargo Moorhead had been the largest area that I'd lived. I would just say you'd have to definitely know that it is going to be different, and keep that in mind. Do as much as you can to prepare yourself, not necessarily with specifics, but more mentally, and just kind of being prepared and aware and ready for things that are going to be different and new and uncomfortable because you've never experienced them.
What's kind of one of your fondest memories, or something that really has stuck with you?
I would say my trip to Alexandria, is probably one of my most interesting memories. I look back on it now with a lot of fondness. I went with two other exchange students that I had met and become really close friends with, along my semester there. It was, kind of the last trip that we took together for heading back home at the end of the semester. And it was really awesome. We took the train from Cairo to Alexandria, was able to, talk to, at that point, we had, learned enough Arabic to talk to some of our, there was a mother in the seat in front of us, a mother with her daughter, and we were able to have a nice conversation with them. Went to Alexandria and did sightseeing and absorbed as much culture and, of the sites and the experiences as we could. And it was really fun. It was a really fun experience.
Did you find it easy to kind of travel around the country to other cities like Alexandria?
The two big, kind of traveling experiences I had was to Alexandria and then to Siwa. The Siwa trip was kind of set up by some fellow students. So they, kind of helped us set that up. A group of a lot of foreign exchange students helped by some of the local students who were in res life. But yeah, getting around Cairo and getting around the country, I would say was fairly easy, especially with other avenues that I had that were available to set up stuff.
And maybe like talk about some of the kind of day-to-day life. Like, what was the food like? Did you enjoy that? Did you find it to be relatively affordable to kind of move around the city? Can you talk about kind of your day-to-day life a little bit?
So I, most of my classes, because the AUC, week is Sunday, Monday, then they have kind of a break on Tuesday for other classes. That's when I had, my jazz group met on Tuesdays. A lot of groups meet on Tuesdays. And then, Wednesday, Thursday. So within, Sunday to Thursday, I usually was just mostly going to class, eating on campus or just off campus. So I mostly was going to class and, doing things on campus, hanging out with friends on campus or just outside of campus. There's, the Spot Mall and another mall that's like right in front of the campus ground. So that was a fun place to, go hang out, go, sit in a coffee shop and do some homework. On the weekends, even going grocery shopping and stuff, food was always very affordable, especially, coming from an American perspective. I would say the food was extremely affordable. Every once in a while, there would be like one item that, costs a whole lot more in Egypt than it does, in America. In general, on average, food is very affordable and usually a little bit less than I would expect, even coming from the Midwest, which is not a very expensive place to live in America either.
And I was just curious about, you said you found that jazz group. Did you just kind of discover that on your own, or did you get help in finding that?
So I actually emailed the head of the music department at AUC prior to me going there. I kind of introduced myself. I was like, hey, I'm Hannah. I'm coming from Concordia. I play the saxophone. What ensembles do you think I could, become a part of? Do you know of any classes that I could, be a part of? And she actually suggested the jazz group to me. And there definitely would have been more options for me if I had played a more versatile instrument. So I would say there definitely is more connections at AUC for vocal majors coming from Concordia. But yeah, clarinet, flute, percussion of most kinds would fit really well in that band. And then, yeah, I would say the choir would be very easy for a chorist at Concordia to join. Might have to do a little bit of adjusting when it comes to like musical styles, but I feel like that would have been a really good opportunity for a choral major.
And I know that you took psychology classes as well. What did you kind of like about the classroom experience at AUC?
I took abnormal psych, social psych, and cognitive psych at AUC. I had kind of three very different teachers for all of those, but I would say I really enjoyed like learning psychology specifically from perspective of being in a different country, especially social psychology. It was very interesting to take that class in particular because we did we were able to make a lot of comparisons when it came to like social psychology in Egypt and the Middle East and like what those kind of like cultures value and all that stuff versus, compared to an American perspective on that. And I would say for most of my psychology classes, I was able, that was a conversation that happened in all of those classes at some point, but mostly in my social psychology class. I enjoyed the classroom experience at AUC. It was very similar to Concordia.
Would you say you're maybe one of how many kind of international students do you think were in any of your classes? Were you one of the only ones?
So it depended on my class. So in my Intro to Islam class, I was one of two. There's only one other girl who's also from the United States in that class. In a couple of my psychology classes, there's usually a handful of international students. I think I was only in one class at AUC where I was the only international student. Usually there was about 3 or 4 of us in a class of like 20.
I'm curious about kind of like how easy it was to integrate with domestic students there, not only in the classroom, but also kind of in like the social scene.
Yeah, in the classroom, I would say it was fairly easy in class together. There was one difficulty that I kind of ran into when it came to like, integrating myself into, like the local students there, which was whenever wasn't kind of mandated or, it wasn't in like a classroom experience, a lot of students would go back to speaking in Arabic, side conversations happening in Arabic, or, like side comments, both like in class and then, as soon as you leave class.
I wonder, I'm just wondering, because we have a 7-week intensive program over the summer that's worth 6 credits. So that would be like 2 classes. Would that be something that Concordia students might be able to do from June to July if they were just interested in language and getting to travel to Egypt?
Definitely. That would be a really good fit. That's good.
We also offer scholarships for it. Definitely worth applying. It's an interesting group of students. It's usually still relatively small cohort compared to like the semester abroad, but it is students from all over the US, but also from really all over the world, specifically interested in Arabic and really improving their language. But there is an absolute beginner level to advance. Yeah. And I know you lived in the on-campus residences. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Went to AUC where I lived in, the dorms and on-campus housing situations. But at AUC, even though there is that option at AUC, I was in more of an apartment style unit where there was 4, single bedrooms, and then we shared 2 bathrooms and a kitchen and lounge area, and it was really nice. It was a really nice living situation. I loved it. The only thing that kind of surprised me, I would say, is that AUC has cleaners that come around to clean the bathroom. And that was something that I was not expecting. It was very nice arrangements. I loved it. My, RA for that unit was awesome. She was really helpful when it came to, she put together a document of places around campus and, apps that we could use to like order groceries or food, some of the like fun, like here's how to, get around AUC in New Cairo. So she was really helpful. And
did you meet other kind of Egyptians who were living in the dorms or other students from the region as well?
Yeah, so my 3 other kind of flatmates, another foreign, student from Belgium, and then the other 2 who were in the flat with us were local students from Cairo. Yeah, I got to know them because we were living together. But yeah, I also got to know a lot of the local students who lived both in my unit and in units around me, just through some of the mixers that the RAs like inter-unit gatherings as well as unit gatherings. That was awesome for me to get to know some of the other students around the residence halls.
For a student who doesn't know where they want to go or really wants to go abroad, but you were picking between like the UK and Egypt, so again, like 2 very different places, like why would you recommend an AUC to a Concordia student specifically?
I would say, especially if you're like me and you're not too picky, you aren't specifically saying, oh, I want to go to Europe or I want to go to South America. If like me, you weren't super picky or considering exactly where in the world, I would say definitely go to AUC. I had a really good time. That's probably a little bit of my bias talking, just because I had an amazing time there. It was really awesome. The school, schoolwork and classwork was very comparable to Concordia when it came to, like difficulty and like requirements and stuff like that. So it wasn't a huge academic style shift, at least for me. Yeah, the hospitality in Egypt is awesome. I never felt unwelcome either on campus or, just being around the city. I definitely felt like the odd one out at times. But that was, only because I very visually am not Egyptian and didn't know Arabic. So that was kind of my own doing. But even when I was the odd one out, I always felt very welcome and, accepted and appreciated.
I often use AUC because of the breadth of the classes that you offer and just the user-friendly website to like get students started on, like when I have students who want kind of any type of standard liberal art class, it's there like in some sort. And that's like a hopeful place to start with advising students, because it's like you can get these classes abroad. You just sometimes have to dig a bit more.
Because we're a liberal arts college kind of at our core, but we do also have like a business school and a science and engineering school. So we do kind of attract a mix of American students, and some of them are really serious in engineering. Some are really just, doing international business, and others have double, triple majors. And so they're looking to really try to, satisfy, like you did psychology and music. There's a lot of that kind of combination, especially at kind of smaller liberal arts colleges. And so at least over the past couple of years when I've been in this role, I've really found that we're able to satisfy those requirements and just provide that kind of ease into a new academic setting where the syllabus is going to look very similar and the grading system will look very similar. Even the teaching style sometimes may be similar. And so I think students really are just adjusting more to who's sitting in class with you and in which country you're doing it. But the core of the class is, relatively similar. And in my role here in the US, I help students really early on in the process. So if anyone wants to see a syllabus of a course ahead of time, happy to provide that. So we can also support students throughout that process. But yeah, a lot of the foundational courses, but we have the full 4-year degree that is considered an American degree. So it really is the same kind of standard. It's just kind of about doing that course matching kind of closely. And I'm happy to work with you on that, Parker. And we're getting more and more science and engineering students. I don't know, Hannah, if you met a lot of students that were in those fields, but we're getting more and more.
Like hearing you talk about that made me think about is also like an amazing thing about AUC is that you do have like master's level students in classes also on, campus, which is something that Concordia has a little bit of, but not a whole lot when it comes to, offering some of those higher level classes, especially for students in like their junior and senior year. I know as an international student, it was, an option for me to take 1 or 2 like master's level classes. I didn't personally take advantage of that, but I did have friends who took advantage of taking master's level courses kind of as an undergrad.
So I think that's one benefit of coming to like a full service university versus maybe one of the smaller study abroad providers. You really have access to an incredible library, to all of the faculty who are doing things on campus, to over 60 student clubs.
Like that was something that I realized after getting to AUC. A lot of the times getting myself connected to student organizations and clubs, like you said, I did that Instagram pages and Facebook pages, and I really appreciated that, especially at the student organization and like club level, because it was really accessible. It was really easy to just kind of like send a DM to a student club and just be like, hey, I'm Hannah, I'm an international student, I'm interested in this club or what you guys do.
And I tell them this might be your only time to come to Egypt for at least this long of a period. You might come for a 1-week vacation with your family, which is very different. Taking a lot of your time, Hannah. I'm really appreciative of all of your feedback and comments.
It's appreciated hearing more. I know we've chatted a bit about your experience, but I'm just glad to hear more about it.
Other than, I had a really good time at AUC. Even the scenarios where I did, come into some roadblocks, there were some difficulties or, some misunderstandings or anything. The faculty and staff at, AUC was always really helpful. The staff at AUC was very, very helpful and understanding and, took the time to explain things. I just had a really good time at AUC.
Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
nice
both.
To see you again, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you or putting a face to your name. I know we've emailed many times.
No, it was really great.